And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never shut out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today we're talking about week 13. Yeah, week 13. We're already here. Got 2 weeks left of regular season college football in the year 2024, where it has been perhaps, we can have this discussion another time, whether or not it's parity or just a result of, conference realignment. But I mean, there's a lot of action going on right now. A lot of tight conference races. A ton of stuff riding this week. And you look at a couple headliner games, and we're going to be previewing games, three of them that have a point spread of greater than 10 points. I think that's the, second or third time that we've done this all season. And they're still big games, dude. There's still, failure modes for some of these top teams to lose. There's still situations where some of these lesser teams in some conferences can sneak in and find a way. All of a sudden, the Big 12 is wide open. The SEC is wide open. These last 2 weeks are going to tell us a lot. The Sun Belt is wide open. The MAC has a huge matchup this week. The CUSA has a huge matchup this week. We're going to be touching almost every single conference, basically. We're not touching the ACC today in our previews, but, maybe you or I will have stuff in like our best bets / dirty dogs. Actually, not in our dirty dogs, but in our best bets, maybe. And then I guess we're not touching the Mountain West, but we will touch the Mountain West in our best bets. So yeah, I'm really liking what we got right now, and I'm excited for this weekend slate. Last weekend, I heard people saying it wasn't a good slate, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You had undefeated BYU lose. You had a pretty good game with Georgia Tennessee. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a good week last week. South Carolina Missouri game was nuts, coming down to the wire at the end there. I don't know, man. I thought it was a good week. I thought it was a good week. Competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one, it's going to be awesome. I think this week you mentioned all the conferences we're going to be previewing. This is the most diversity we've had here on our slate, and that speaks to how many different things are going on in different conferences. Maybe it's not just about the playoff race, but it's about these conference races. It's about making them bowl games, things that can really shake up the way that these conferences are viewed in certain scenarios, and it's going to be really fun. I hope you guys are enjoying. Yeah, we're excited to get into this week.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. But let's go through the agenda real quick. We're going to preview 8 games that we've selected this week. And if we didn't preview your team, let us know in the comments. Be like, hey, look, this team's kind of in a race, in a boat race over here, and you're not really talking about them a whole lot. That's fine. We get it. We got a lot of college football teams. If we miss some, then it happens, right? So let us know, like, what kind of teams you want us to cover for you guys, so we can talk about these teams and make sure everyone is doesn't get their feelings hurt, right? But also, we're going to get into our dirty dogs, which are our 10-point underdogs, right? That we've selected every single week to win straight up and see if they win. We didn't have a single one hit last week because we each get 2 picks, right? We're averaging one a week. We didn't get one last week. Law of averages? Question mark. I mean, we were both talking about before. There's like a lot of 10-point favorites that I think are on some serious heat check alerts right here before rivalry weekend. Because it's the biggest look ahead weekend of the entire year. So I love that. And then we'll get into our best bets. So but make sure you guys, if you like the content, like the video, simple rule that we have here, and you want to stick with us the rest of the way. And in the bowl season, which by the way, bowl season is freaking awesome content that we put out here. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit that little subscribe button. It also helps us big time. If you're listening on Spotify, we love you too. Sorry I didn't get like a couple of those last episodes published on Spotify. Totally a goof on my part, but YouTube is still there, an option as well. And Spotify, if you would just give us a follow and a 5-star rating, that would be wonderful. But apologies for the intermittent uploads on Spotify. Uh, some technical issues over on my end, but yeah, appreciate y'all joining. Let's just get right into this. I mean, the first game we're going to talk about. Let's go to the Big Ten. Let's go to a team that's freaking undefeated. Ohio State versus Indiana, and Ohio State's not the undefeated team. Indiana's undefeated heading this way, and people want to poop on Indiana's schedule, right? But I think it's important to look at how they've beaten these teams. They've massacred everyone, even Michigan. I mean, I know it got closer there at the end. It was a one possession game, but come on. I mean, Indiana was in control of that football game, right? So Ohio State has played better football, I think, these last couple weeks. You're seeing production from all of their wide receivers. Carnell Tate's looked good, Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith. From a running back perspective, Quinshon Judkins hasn't looked awesome, but Travion Henderson, has kind of picked up a lot. And defensively, I think you've seen a couple really impressive performances from Ohio State the last couple weeks. Unlike you saw against their effort, unlike you saw when they played against Oregon or even Nebraska. Honestly, I wasn't that impressed with their defense uh, earlier this season. So this is going to be a barn burner. It's in Columbus. Not a game that we had circled on our calendar heading into the season, but here we are, both teams controlling their own destiny when it comes to the college football playoffs and making the Big Ten championship.
This one's going to be awesome. I think we've had this circled, I think, for a couple weeks now. A lot of people have, too, in terms of, what Indiana's schedule looked like, how they were playing early in the season. And, like, if they can get there and be 10-0, this could get really, really interesting. Indiana's coming off a bye. Yes, they do have to travel to Columbus, but man, oh man, I think this coaching staff deserves a ton of credit for Indiana and like how you can look at this game, because obviously there is going to be a talent edge. Absolutely. Like it's going to happen. There's going to be huge home field advantage there for Ohio State because, it's going to be wild there. But man, oh man, Kirk Cincinnati, the coaching staff there has done such a good job. You give them an extra week to prepare, and they know, and they've heard all the whispers on the wall, like their back's probably against the wall. They need to come out and at least look like they can play, right? I think they're going to come out fired up, ready to go. Defensively, I think this is where they have to make their mark. Everyone talks about Curtis Rourke and the offense and the wide receivers and Kirk Cincinnati, blah, blah, blah. And while they've been amazing and they're obviously going to have to put up points, to me, defensively, you have to get after Will Howard. You have to stop the run. Indiana is leading the Big Ten in sacks, in 31 sacks per game. That is
Not per
awesome.
game, but the,
I'm sorry, 31 sacks throughout the year.
Yeah.
Thank you. On the season,
which is over 3 sacks a game.
Yeah, which is freaking amazing. And then you also got defensively, through the ground, they are the top team in the Big 12, in the Big 10, 72 yards per game. And this Ohio State running back tandem, who has, dare I say, struggled compared to expectations, what we thought was going to be coming in season with them and Will Howard and Chip Kelly coming in to kind of revitalize that running game. This is where Indiana can make their mark. They can jump on them early, do what Penn State did, but also have the wagons and the horses to actually carry that out, right? We saw Penn State jump on them, and they couldn't do anything about it. How do you feel?
Well, this point spread's 12.5 that we're going to pick at, right? So if you're joining us for the first time, we pick the games, in terms of a spread, and we also pick, who's going to win these games straight up. And it sucks that this game is on the road for Indiana, because I think if this game was at home, I would be picking them straight up to win. I think I really would. I just think traveling to Columbus, I think the fans are going to be excited for this game because not that this Indiana team isn't ready to play in a tough environment, because they have already a couple of them, but I'm definitely taking Indiana cover plus 12.5. And I might be looking at Indiana in a later segment on this show, but I think it's hard to justify picking them to win straight up. I mean, it is a big point spread, and they could absolutely do it. And I've kind of had it circled in my calendar, like, maybe, yeah, Indiana could win this game, dude. But I guess going back to like the tough environment, part of it. I mean, the toughest environment that they've played in this year was East Lansing, which is like a tough environment, but like not like Columbus, not like Columbus in a top 5 matchup, right? Because otherwise they've gone on the road to play Northwestern, they've gone on the road to play UCLA, not exactly barn burner environments this season in terms of the Big Ten. So this will be not that Columbus isn't already one of the toughest environments, one in the Big Ten, two in the entire country, but yeah, this might be a different beast that they're heading into. And if Curtis Rourke doesn't take care of the football, because also like the turnover margins, I mean, they've done a really nice job managing that. If they start turning the ball over against a defense that's vastly improving right now, then I could see them, being in a lot of trouble. And also Ohio State has been able to stop the run the last couple weeks. against Oregon and Nebraska, that was a little bit of a problem. If Indiana can run the ball, they're winning this game. But I think I lean Indiana cover the 12.5, Ohio State to win.
That's where I'm going to be at too, because I do think it will be somewhat of a competitive game. I don't know if Ohio State, if it like in the most likely scenarios, is going to be able to really pull away from this Indiana team. And I mean, Indiana, the only thing that scares me is they haven't faced a ton of adversity. And I guess you could call the beginning of the Michigan State game adversity on the road, going down early and then responding very well. And not that I think that really matters, because I think they realize exactly who they're going up against. They know how damn good Ohio State is, and the respect level for the Buckeyes in the Big Ten is obviously at a max. But it could be interesting there. And another thing too is, so I want to ask you this in terms of the quarterback competition here, quarterback battle.
Ooh, good
Who
question.
would you take here? Because I, for one, I love Curtis Rourke, and I think nationally he's getting a lot of hype, which is
I'll take
fantastic.
Will Howard.
I would take Will Howard too, because
And
I
people
think
are gonna disagree with us completely, and I totally get it. Like I get it. I just let's see Curtis Rourke against this defense.
yeah, and go into Eugene and play really really well. So it'll be very interesting. But also, so Ohio State's gotten a lot of flack in the offensive line, and while I think it definitely is concerning against teams that can really get after the quarterback, but Will Howard's only been sacked 9 times
It's
all
credit to
year.
him.
I think that's what he does very, very well, and also the scheme that they have. And so they got to play ahead of the sticks and make sure that they're not being put in the wrong spots.
Yeah, only
Say,
5 interceptions on the season, 26 passing touchdowns. I'm looking at it as a team. I don't know if those are all Will Howard's touchdowns because they've had some blowouts, but
he's got 24 touchdowns and 5
24.
interceptions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's nice. That's nice.
he's
Isn't that
completing
is that not
70.
what Shador Sanders is at, or what he was at? Before this past week or something. So
I could
like
check.
Will Howard is playing damn good football this year, and everyone wants to absolutely crap on him. Everyone wants to absolutely crap on him
Yeah,
for one play, but yeah, it was not a good play. Okay, it's not. But brother, let me tell you, college quarterbacks aren't exactly always elite game clock time managers aware, of certain thing. Like Will Howard's still a damn good quarterback, guys. Let's be real.
give me one impact player on each team. That's maybe not gonna get obviously not that's not named Will Howard and Curtis Rourke, of course, but like give me one on Indiana and give me one on Ohio State.
Uh, well, I mean, if you're going to talk about Curtis Rourke, I mean, we could talk about the running backs for Indiana and how they're going to have a big game, but I think it's important to talk about what are these impact plays that they can make through the air, and like who are those guys that are going to be making the plays there. Elijah Sarrett, I mean, or Surratt, the transfer from James Madison was a huge get for Indiana. I mean, among many of the other James Madison transfers that they brought over with Kurt Signetti. I mean, he's got 38 receptions, 685 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the year. He's like their guy, and he's a legitimate like Big Ten receiver. Like he's good enough to do that. And I also think they get stuff from all over the place, right? Like Miles Cross, the Ohio transfer, Miles Price, the Texas Tech transfer. Like this is a group of wide receivers that was kind of put together through the portal, and we've seen that work out in some places. We've seen it not work out in some places. Like I look like Nebraska, and I'm like, wow, I was so high on their receiver room. It just hasn't really come together, with those transfers. But in Indiana's case, it has really worked out, and I think that those guys can make impact plays. Not to mention, Omar Cooper, Donovan McCulley. I mean, he's not
I
really
think he's
playing that
gone.
much. He's gone. So whatever. But yeah, aside from those running backs, the two running backs that they have there that are really good for Indiana, I mean, that's the guy that you're kind of looking at. And then for Ohio State, I mean, you haven't heard his name like nationally a lot this year, but like, have we forgotten how good this set of edge defenders is? Like, and what kind of pressure that Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau are going to put on Curtis Rourke? Probably those are probably the two best defensive players that Indiana's played all year. Am I right in saying that? I guess Will Johnson for Michigan, but
I don't even know if Will Johnson played in that game, but
yeah,
it's probably that. I mean, maybe yeah, because the Nebraska defensive line's been underwhelming a little bit this year at times, more so recently. But yeah, that's not crazy. I think there's a lot of really talented pieces. The athleticism and speed they're going to see the Ohio State in that front seven. It's going to be interesting to see if they can still run the ball. I'm glad you brought up Elijah Surratt because Oregon was able to take advantage of Denzel Burke and some of these more physical, right, like cornerbacks. But in these one-on-one games, one-on-one matchups, like you have to make plays. You just have to go up and make plays. And Surratt, I think, can do that for Indiana. They have the horses to do that. Penn State did not, other than Tyler Warren. They really don't have, the guys to really get after it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be really interesting. It's crazy that this is a big game. It is crazy. I think it's amazing for college football. I think it's amazing for the Big Ten to give people. I mean, it sucks for a lot of these coaches that are been stuck in mediocrity for a while, and then their
yeah.
AD's got to watch Indiana hire a new coach and go right to the top five.
The
In
the
ten.
blessing, the blessing and the curse of the conference realignment, I think, is kind of bared its fruits. In this game, like Indiana has, we don't really know how good they. I mean, we know that they're a good football team, right? But they have been the beneficiary of a really favorable schedule this so far this season. I think they
To put
played
it
like
lightly.
yeah, like they're gonna end up playing like seven of the bottom eight Big Ten teams this year. Like that is very beneficial to them. But also like when they win those games, right? Then all of a sudden these games like programs that get that schedule break every couple years, then all of a sudden you're looking at it and you're like, wow, like a lot of these schools have a chance. And I thought it'd be like a lesser chance, to make the Big Ten championship if you add more teams, but like I think in some years it actually helps some of the lesser teams if you get those schedule breaks and it gives yourself a chance. Then you just have to win, one big game, right? Or in SMU's case, no real big games. Well, I
Louisville?
guess Pitt and Louisville, yeah, but like Louisville just
They're
took a
not
bad
bad.
loss. Pitt's been on the decline. I mean, so yeah, but
It,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, they're doing exactly what we joked Rutgers would do over the summer because Rutgers has
Yeah,
arguably the easiest schedule in the Big Ten because they don't get, you know, I guess Indiana you could throw it there, but they don't get Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, nor none of those teams. So in terms of the talent or the top of the standings, they don't play any of them, and Iowa too on that schedule. So yeah, and Rutgers was going to be in games where like they had chances to win or like they were playing teams that are comparable to them in every single game. And so Indiana is just in talent wise, sure, maybe it's a similar comp, but they're just playing at a very, very high level. And you got to give them credit for dominating these teams. Is there a certain score? Do they have to like if they cover? You think they're still in the playoffs?
like Indiana.
Yeah, like if
I think
if Texas is still in the playoffs after getting
yeah,
smoked by Georgia at home, by the way, are we not going to credit Indiana for losing?
yeah. I'm with you there. I'm with you. If you're gonna punish Indiana, you should also punish Texas. You can't punish
And
both,
Penn State
or you can't.
and
Yeah, and yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. But I don't. The brand, right? I think hurts. It hurts. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. This is gonna be an awesome game. Ole Miss travels to Gainesville. 10.5 point spread right there. Ole Miss is favored, obviously, for a pretty good reason here. But Florida, is Florida a top 25, top 30 caliber football team with just an absolutely gauntlet schedule?
I mean, with the way DJ Lagway is playing, I mean, he came for. I mean, we all saw what happened against Georgia, right? I mean, you saw the car, you saw the tears, you saw how upset everybody was. It felt like it was game over for them this year for DJ Lagway in terms of long rehab ahead of him, the hamstring, a complete tournament. That's a brutal recovery, and he came back a couple weeks later. There was rumors he was going to play against Texas, and obviously they could have absolutely used him in that game, but you saw the difference he made against LSU. They got a couple of really good running backs right now. Their defense is playing and really getting after people. You know, almost 7 sacks against LSU. Is that what it was at? I mean, holy cow! Against a damn good front there for them. It's been fun. I think Florida. We talked about them a lot this offseason, and the first thing you talk about was their schedule. It sucks. This, but their schedule, and so that's kind of what was looming over their head. And now they're getting into November, and all of a sudden, it looks, I think, a little bit more favorably than it was going to at the beginning of the year.
They're
Obviously,
gonna
you
probably
didn't
make a
have,
bowl game.
yeah, you just got to beat Florida State. And this game is too also winnable. It's also winnable at home. I think the Swamp is going to be fired up. I think that obviously announcing, Billy Napier is going to be the guy still. And then, you know, getting that win last week at home against LSU, I think they're going to be really, really vitalized. And they know this is an elimination game for Ole Miss. They beat them. Ole Miss is probably out. And it's going to be really, really interesting here to see, what goes on, how fast they start, because we saw early in the season they were not getting out to good starts at all. But as we slowly got more and more in the season, they started playing a little bit better early on, a little bit more prepared, and it's been paying dividends, I think.
I think so. But with that said, I'm gonna lay the points with Ole Miss here because I just think they're in kind of ascension mode right now. They are playing the best football I think in the SEC, and I don't think that's crazy to say. Offensively, they look good. Defensively, they're still getting after quarterbacks. Yeah, they had to slip up to Kentucky early in the season. All right. Yeah, they lost to LSU in a game they absolutely should have freaking won. Okay, and LSU that loss looks even worse now. Week to week. But I still think Ole Miss is really good. That's a team that I don't want to play. Right. If I am you know, it's unfortunate that Ole Miss doesn't really have a lot of tiebreakers. When it comes to this stuff. But man, they might be the beneficiary of that. Not basically getting a bye week. They might be hosting a playoff game if they win out here and they'd get a bye week essentially because they don't have to play in the conference championship game, you know? So, because if you play in the conference championship game and then lose it, then you have to play the conference championship game and then you don't get a bye week, right? Because the bye week I'm saying is essentially not playing in the conference championship game. I think Ole Miss has a lot to play for right now. Those boys are buzzing. Lane Kiffin is going to be dialed this game because let's be real, next week it's the Egg Bowl. It's a big game, but it's not exactly the biggest look ahead spot. I think for them as a coaching staff. So I like Ole Miss in the spot minus 10.5, even though I think Florida could definitely win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think Ole Miss is just a really, really good football team right now. It'll be interesting to see if they do get into the playoffs and where they're going to be at, because yeah, like you said, nobody wants to play them right now. I think Florida falls into a similar category in terms of you don't want to see them on your schedule. I mean, LSU found out because like if you lose to Florida, you're obviously losing to a very talented football team in a potential hostile environment. But you're gonna look at the record and like the perception nationally, and it's gonna be like, oh, we lost to Florida. Like, what's that all about? And it's could be pretty tough. So this is not a good spot for Ole Miss because this is, I think, an elimination game. But here's the thing. I talked about Florida, getting better defensively, and they have, I think, too. But they are second to last in the SEC in rush yards per game given up, 163. Right, and the last team is Mississippi State, it's a whole other problem. But what Ole Miss, if they can really get after on the ground there, and you saw what they did, honestly, against Georgia, and really be able to pound that rock at times when they needed to, over 130 yards on the ground in that game, get Jackson Dart going maybe, get Bentley, Thomas, and those guys really getting after it. You can control this football game, go on the road and get a stop or get a win and kind of jump on them early, quiet that crowd, make Lagway play from behind a little bit where it's not comfortable. Let your pass rushers do exactly what they did to Georgia and really get after the quarterback. Ole Miss was a team that, well, first of all, they're coming off a bye too, which is really nice. I think that's a great time for them to have a bye. But they're also a team that in October, you had no idea who you were getting. You had no idea. It was up and down all along. It was lose to Kentucky, blow out South Carolina. You play great for two and a half quarters against LSU and then blow that game. And then struggle with Oklahoma at times. And all of a sudden, they flipped the switch here in November. And like you said, they're playing fantastic football. Yeah, I think they don't need style points. I kind of said that, I think, a couple weeks ago, and that maybe they would. But where they're at right now in the rankings, and we'll see where they we're recording this Tuesday morning, so we'll see where they fall this week with teams ahead of them potentially losing, and see where the committee likes them. But yeah, I think this is a spot where they can just keep winning out. You know, get a 14-point win here, go in the swamp, and get out. I think that'd be a very impressive win for them, and I'd continue to bump them on my personal rankings here.
BYU travels to Arizona State in what is legitimately the Big 12 game of the year. And what's hilarious about this is that both these teams had an over and a win total of 4.5 entering in the season. What a time to be alive as a Big 12 fan. This is unbelievable. Arizona State has just played such good football. Literally all season long. All season long. I know that some of the teams that they played against and one you're looking at and you're like, oh man, maybe the Big 12 isn't that strong, right? And I know people want to look at the SEC and be like, oh, like when the SEC beats up on each other, it's because everyone's good. And when the Big 12 beats up on each other, it's because, whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how good the Big 12 is relative to some of these other conferences, but I'll tell you this, it's competitive. And BYU is coming off a stinger of a loss to Kansas. They've had a couple instances where they've been very beatable, like against Oklahoma State, against Utah, where they probably should have lost, one or both of those games. It's at Arizona State, dude. The line's 3.5 here, favoring Arizona State, and I'm gonna lay him, dude. Arizona State is in ascension mode, and I talked about this on the preview show last week. I'm like, Arizona State's plus 1,700 to win the Big 12, and all we need to happen really is for Arizona State to beat Kansas State and BYU, which I thoroughly believe both those things were going to happen, and then Kansas to beat BYU, which we also predicted on the show. And I'm like, if you parlay those together, it's probably like plus 1,400. I'm like, plus 1,700 feels like pretty decent value. And, well, I don't. But then they'd also have to win the Big 12 championship too. So I just did the math in my head. I'm like, oh man, should I do it? And I thought I was going to do it, and then I didn't do it. And I'm so pissed because they're now plus 350 to win the Big 12 after just a couple days ago being plus 1,700. So Arizona State's in ascension mode. I freaking love it. Samuel is playing great football. Cam Scadaboo is going to get his. That defense and Brian Ward. Brian Ward is going to. I hope they keep him, dude, and I hope they pay him whatever he needs because he has been so good for them as their defensive coordinator the last 2 seasons with limited talent. You lost your like 3 best players on the defensive side of the ball last year, and you got better. That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable coach job by Brian Ward, and not to mention Kenny Dillingham, who I think. I mean, obviously, you look at Sanders, right, and what he's done there. I think is a fantastic job. But when I'm looking at Big 12 coaches of the year, I'm staring at Kenny Dillingham, and I'm like, holy cow, the job that this guy has done in 2 seasons with what we thought was a garbage roster has been nothing short of miraculous.
It's been incredible. There's been a couple great stories in the Big 12 here. BYU also, I think, kind of they're losing their steam and they're losing their Cinderella, right? You can see it kind of fading away, that magic, but they also deserve a ton of credit here. I'm going to go Arizona State with you. I'm going to take the minus 3.5. I think BYU has been a team that has been super vulnerable, right? I think for a while now, and they kind of ran into a team that was playing good football and honestly got a bounce of ball luck, and they ended up winning that football game against Kansas after the punt, hitting the pooch punt, hitting the player, and Kansas getting the ball
Yep.
first and goal. But I don't think Arizona State needs that kind of luck. I think at home, 12:30 p.m. local time, it's going to be fired up there in Tempe. And this is a good football team. We talked about it. They've known exactly what they've needed to do. They've known exactly what's needed to happen for them to go to the Big 12. And by the way, be a game away from the playoffs. I know a lot has to happen. You got to beat a BYU team. You got to go on the road to your rival, Arizona, who I think embarrassed you last year. But man, oh man, it's there for you. It is there for you. Defensively, BYU, we've talked about them doing a great job, and they have. And especially to the standard of what we thought it was going to be there. But on the ground, they have been susceptible. They're pretty average in the Big 12 there. And like you said with Scadaboo, if he can get going, man, and give Sammy L play action passes and different looks down the field and let Kenny Dillingham really start operating and opening up that entire offense. You're in second and short. You're in third and short. Favorable spots for the offense, and that's where you can see this team really jump on you like they did to Kansas State. And by the way, Arizona State against the run is damn good. They're up at the top three there, and if you make Retzlaff beat you, we've seen at times he can. We've also seen at times, more so recently, where it's been a lot more, than good. And I think that's where Arizona State and Clayton Smith and those guys can get after him and get a win here because, damn it, and both these teams are still alive for the playoffs, which is awesome. But you also got, I think, an Arizona State team that's ascending and BYU team that's maybe falling off right now or coming back down to earth.
I mean, this is a huge game, dude. And then obviously there's still a game next week that's got to be played for both these teams, but each of them control their own destiny for the college football playoffs. It's crazy to think about that the teams Colorado, Arizona State, and BYU all had a win total of less than 6 heading into the season, control their own destiny right now in Week 13 to make it to the college football playoffs. It's unbelievable, really unbelievable.
That's why we play the games, by the way. That's why we play the games.
Yeah, you said it. We're gonna go over, stay in the Big 12, talking about one of those teams that I just mentioned briefly a second ago. Colorado travels to Kansas. Now it's not on campus; it's technically a neutral site game, but Colorado's favored by 3. I believe that line opened at 2.5. We're gonna pick it at 3. Kansas is playing good football right now, guys. Travis Hunter's in the national spotlight. For up for some award called the Heisman Trophy. These days he's playing good football. Shedeur Sanders is, in my opinion, these last couple weeks playing the best football of any quarterback in the entire country. He to me is looking like a top 10 pick, top 5 pick, in the NFL draft, regardless of like whatever you talent wise, right? I'm not going to speak to other things about him, just intangible. I'm just watching the games. All right. He looks amazing. Both these teams are trending upwards, so it's hard to pick, right? And you might be sitting here as a college football fan, you might be like, how in the heck is Colorado only 3-point favorite against a team that's only won 4 games all season? Guys, Kansas has lost 6 games this season, 5 of them in a one possession game. They won their first one possession game last week. They're 1-5 in one possession football games, which is crazy because Lance Leipold is such a good head coach, right? And when I look at this too, like the quarterback matchup, right, I give the edge to Shedeur Sanders in Colorado, but the coaching matchup,
In game.
in game management, right, I give the head coaching over at Kansas a little bit of an edge here. Not necessarily the staff there, but because they did lose some guys. They lost Jordan Peterson, right? Their DB's coach, who's been really good to them for a long time. They lost Andy Kotelnicki to Penn State, right? So there was some serious coaching turnover, which is a good sign, by the way, for Kansas. If your coaches are getting poached elsewhere, it's hard to reload there. But Jalen Daniels is playing better football. Thing is, though, Colorado, I think, has done a decent job stopping the run. I know you're going to be like, well, Tosh Brooks just ran for 130 yards against them, but Tosh Brooks also ran for 130 yards against nearly freaking everyone. So, I don't care. All right. I think I'm going to go with Kansas here, +3. And I think I'm going to take them to win as well. They're just playing too good of football right now. I know Colorado's also playing too good of football right now, but I think when it comes down to it, playing on the road for Colorado and also the head coaching advantage in that fourth quarter, or overtime, whenever it's happening, I just trust. I know it's hard to say when they're 1-5 one possession games this year, but I just trust. I trust what I'm seeing with my eyeballs right now with Kansas. I think it's a team that really wants to make a bowl game, and they absolutely can.
Yeah, I had a Kansas future. It was plus 950 to win the Big 12 early in the year, and it was awful for a while, and I kind of regretted it. But damn, this team right here, this is a team that could, if they've been playing like this all year long, if they've been winning those close games, they could absolutely be finding themselves in the same spot BYU is, in the same spot Colorado is, in the same spot Arizona State is, right there with a chance to win the Big 12. Yeah, this is a dangerous spot. We talked about Kansas's schedule, And look who they've played, and look at these teams at the top of the Big 12 in Kansas State and Iowa State, and then BYU last week and now Colorado. Teams that don't want to be playing Kansas because you're not going to get credit for losing for them because it's not a quality loss at all, in the eyes of a lot of people. But you also know you're playing a very talented, dangerous football team with a very good coaching staff. I do wonder, too. I mean, it sucks that this game's technically neutral site. I know it's going to be in Kansas City, and then it'll be at Arrowhead. I get that. It's technically a home game for Kansas, but it would be fun to be on campus. I hope the crowd is somewhat good for Kansas. I haven't been paying too super close attention to their games at Arrowhead, but I know obviously Shador and Travis and Dion, they bring their own set of, publicity and excitement. So I feel like the stadium will be a little bit more packed, even more so than it is right now, because it is such a big game in the Big 12. I'm going to go Colorado on the other side, though. I feel pretty good about that. I think this is the best team in the Big 12, and not particularly close. I think what they've been doing against the run defensively, I think what they've been doing trying to run the football on their own too has been very encouraging, and something that if they can continue to take advantage of, Kansas is a team that's not very good against the run. And if you can, let your running game get going and not have to go against the pass rush, of Kansas and Jerome Robinson and guys like that, and that could affect you for sure. And obviously Shador and the talent there at Colorado and the offensive side of the ball with the weapons they have is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I think it's going to overwhelm Kansas. I do worry with Kansas and Jalen Daniels. We saw early in the season when they get pressed, if they go down in games, we've seen one-score games go the other way because he'll throw a pick. He'll do something he can't afford to do. And we saw it even in the BYU game. It was a one-score game. He threw an interception, and it didn't hurt him, right? But it almost did. So I think Colorado and Shador, just really good football right now. Now, if Devin Neal and Daniels can get going on the ground, it would be a lot more interesting. But I think you're playing this straight up. I think Colorado can commit stopping the run here. You got a couple corners to cover, Luke Grimm and Lawrence Arnold, and you can get after this Kansas football team. But it is a dangerous game. Like we're talking about this, we're talking about a 4-6 team playing an 8-2 team, but there's a reason why that line is so tight here. It could be really interesting, and it's so meaningful for the Big 12. But I do want to ask you: it's got to depend on how this tiebreakers shape out. But Colorado can lose and still make it, if I'm not
To the Big
mistaken.
12 championship?
Yeah, I mean they're
Yeah,
technically 6-1.
I think they. Well, I know BYU definitely can. I don't know about Colorado. I'd have to do the math on that. But you
I
said
think.
you think Colorado's the best team in the Big 12, and you said you don't think it's particularly close. I'm
Well,
gonna
like when I
disagree with
say
you on
close,
that.
I'm talking about like your typical margins in the Big 12. Like that was probably hyperbole. I get that, but I don't think. I'm more so I feel strong about that. Like I think you get anybody neutral site, I'm gonna pick Colorado, and I'm not really gonna think about it.
Okay, because I don't think that there's a huge difference between I think there's 11 teams that are probably power rated within a field goal to 4.5 points in the Big 12 of each other. I legitimately think probably 10, but I
The
I don't
cutoff
know.
is probably in Kansas.
It's probably West Virginia. It's probably the cutoff. TCU. No, not even. Probably West Virginia. Probably your cutoff, maybe.
Okay, I mean Kansas is probably under 5 points difference because it's 2.5.
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah. We'll open at 2.5, so it's probably 5.5. Yeah.
Kansas is also probably power rated over
Well,
Cincinnati and
also
West
it's
Virginia.
technically a neutral site, so actually it probably is under 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
I think Colorado. So just
Maybe that's
saying,
a crazy take, but I feel good about
it's
Colorado
not
right
crazy.
now.
I mean, they're the favorites right now to win the Big 12. So it's not crazy to take to say that they're the best team in the Big 12. I don't know, kind of like Kansas in this spot here. Army and Notre Dame are playing in a football game at MetLife.
At the Yankee Stadium.
Sorry, Yankee Stadium. God, MetLife was the Navy game, right? So this is a really interesting matchup here. You got an undefeated Army, which I don't think we expected heading into this football game. You got a Notre Dame team that had a terrible loss this season, but it seems like if they just keep winning, they're you know
Doesn't
gonna be in
matter.
it. It doesn't matter, how garbage of a loss you have. As long as you beat an undefeated Army team and the Louisville team that's unranked, you're gonna You're going to make the college football playoffs.
Be an
So
A&M team. They beat A&M.
yeah, so I
They
do
handle it.
want to give some context. There was someone in our comment section 4 months ago that had mentioned the significance of Notre Dame playing the academies, and he mentioned that Notre Dame is playing Army this year because of the 100-year anniversary of the Grantland Rice Four Horsemen article, which I have no idea what that is. I'm sure Notre Dame fans are more familiar with that. He said, so normally Notre Dame doesn't play two military academies, uh, but also the academies don't have large enough stadiums for big games, hence the neutral site. So, uh, and he also mentioned that Notre Dame's never played a Navy in Annapolis, which I believe. But yeah, it's Notre Dame plays Navy every year because of he mentions that during World War II, the Naval Academy kind of saved Notre Dame financially by hosting training on the school's campus and paying them to do it. But so they thank Navy, I guess, in that way. But I guess Notre Dame playing Army is the anniversary of some Grantland Rice Four Horsemen article. So I don't know. I could be totally be getting trolled here, and there's probably I don't know. There could be something, but I think that's cool. I guess if that is that's a real thing. So we thank our people in the comment section that have kind of that perspective. So thank you, boss, for that. With that being said, Notre Dame's a 14.5 point favorite. I'm going to lay it. And I have no problem doing that. I think Army, if you look at Army's schedule, man, and I hate to be a hater of schedules, right? It's just, not all schedules are created equally. And you're like, well, how could you say that, and talk so highly about Indiana? It's different, guys. It's different. Like Indiana's pounding bottom half, you know, Big Ten teams, and Army's pounding bottom half American teams, which, by the way, are basically Conference USA teams at this point. Also, Notre Dame knows how to play a triple option, right? You saw them do it to Navy. They literally took Navy and Batman baned them over their knee and just shattered their will to live and play good football. And now Navy sucks. So I like Notre Dame in this spot. I'm not sure offensively they're going to do it a whole lot. With the military academy, generally that clock is going to be milked pretty fast. And Army's defense also has been no slouch either. They've looked really good against some pretty decent offenses, I would say, in the American. But yeah, I think Bryson Daly, the quarterback of Army, is obviously the key player here in this one. And he's looked so good all season. Battled some injuries midway through the season. Army still found ways to win football games. But I like Notre Dame in this spot. I think they're just too much for Army.
I do too. I feel pretty good about that as well. Give me Navy minus, Notre Dame minus 14.5 for picking it at.
Yeah, 14.5.
Yeah, and like you said with Navy, the only thing with that game too that worries me a little bit about this pick is there were a ton of turnovers, and I think Bryson Daly is obviously a monster, and they've been down as of late since he's kind of been banged up, but they did get a bye, hopefully get healthy and really prepare for this game because damn it, they're right in the playoff mix, and if they win this football game, like it's going to be hard to keep them out if they run the table. Now they do have a pretty tough finish to their schedule. We did talk about who they have played, and it's not the best of teams, right? It's been a pretty brutal schedule, and they finished pretty strong with Notre Dame and Navy and potentially Tulane. Well, actually, definitely Tulane in that conference championship game. Yeah, and Notre Dame too can't afford another loss. You can't lose to two G5 teams and expect to make the playoffs. It's not going to happen.
And if they did make the playoffs, then they have to rethink the entire way that they structure that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not
And
structure it, sorry, how they evaluate resumes.
yes, yes. And for Army too. I mean, offensively they've been awesome, right? They've been clipping at a 53.5% third down rate. They staying ahead of the chains. They only have 38 penalties on the year. 38 penalties on the year. A lot of that is due to how shortened the games are and how fewer plays are played in each game. But regardless, it's definitely worth noting and very important in this game. But like you said, I think Notre Dame is so good right now. I think their front seven is looking half of this team defensively. You let Jeremiah Love really get going, and Leonard's been good too. Leonard's been, dare I say, competent throwing the football. And then they're starting to get some emergence from the receivers. Mitchell Evans got involved last week, so that was good to see. Yeah, I like Notre Dame here in this spot. It's definitely probably going to be more competitive than that Navy game. Well, it's probably definitely going to be more competitive than that Navy game. But we'll see what happens here in terms of how ugly it does get, or if Army kind of holds them in tight here. Notre Dame has not played a fourth quarter game, by the way, since NIU, if I'm not mistaken. Right, so it's
Yeah.
since NIU, which is crazy. I mean, I guess Louisville kind of made it close at the end there, but not really. It was a 14-point game with 10 minutes to go. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how they get tested here. But can I ask you this? What score does Army have to hold Notre Dame to? Like what's if it's like, okay, this Notre Dame's under
Like
21
17.
points, like a 17.
They got to like hold them to like 17 points.
It's gonna be points will be hard to come by, I think, in this game for Army.
I agree. Yeah, taking the under, I don't think is a terrible idea. I don't know what the under's at. I'll say that
44,
44. It does seem
44 and
pretty
a half,
high,
I guess.
but I guess we don't really
Big
know a
spread.
whole lot about big spread. We don't know a whole lot about Army's offense, what they're going to do against like an actual defense. So we'll see. Let's go to the Sun Belt. Marshall travels to Old Dominion, and this is a big game, guys, because in the Sun Belt East, there are several teams that are clamoring for spots. Right, you look at Georgia Southern, James Madison, and Marshall. Right, Marshall right now has the best record in the Sun Belt East. Okay, with only one loss. They're traveling to Old Dominion, who is favored against Marshall this game. So this is a huge game. This would turn up a ton of stuff. And Georgia Southern has looked vulnerable. Georgia Southern has a tiebreaker over James Madison and Marshall. But Georgia Southern could slip up one of these last 2 weeks and open the door for, another team like James Madison, right? So like all three of those teams have a real chance of pulling this thing off. And so when I look at this game, man, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Old Dominion favored by 2.5. After I talked so highly of Colton Joseph, he's had two kind of dudders of weeks. And what I mean by that, last week he wasn't very efficient, right? The week before that, it was turnovers. He had something like 5 or 6 turnovers, like alone from fumbles and interceptions. Not good, right? But I do think Old Dominion here, and you might look at this and you'd be like, okay, where does Marshall have the advantage, right? Oh, Marshall's top 10 in the country in sacks? Oh my gosh. And that was, by the way, they lost their
It's Mike
best pass
Green.
rusher. Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. They lost their best pass rusher last year to the portal, one of their best pass rushers to the portal, and they're still producing at the Allen. You're like, oh my god, Old Dominion's at 33 sacks. That's 123rd in the country. Oh my gosh. Well, let's be real. Once Colton Joseph got entered into the lineup, the pressure to sack rate went significantly down. Colton Joseph does a good job using his legs and mobility to avoid taking sacks. I also think he gets rid of the football pretty effectively. So I don't see the advantage necessarily there, like some people would. But I do think something's going to break right here, dude. Both these teams aren't very good at throwing the football. They're both not great defending the run, but these teams also both run the ball pretty well, particularly Marshall. I I think a couple things travel, right? I think defense, and I think Marshall, while they're not a great defense, I think they're a slightly better defense than Old Dominion. And I also think your run game also travels as well. But I can't shake this feeling that I have that Old Dominion is actually a good football team. I'm going to lay the 2.5 with Old Dominion. I'm going to feel terrible about it. Something's going to happen. They're going to blow this game. I don't know what's going to happen, right? But the second that I start putting money down on Old Dominion, they start stinking it up. So I am on Old Dominion here, and I don't feel great about it. I think Marshall, bringing that run game, it's going to have kind of a big impact here. I mean, and Old Dominion isn't particularly amazing against the run. I would say that they're all right when it comes to Sunbelt teams. They would be a lot better if they had, their star linebacker, Jason Henderson, for the season, but unfortunately they haven't had him, and they've had to deal without him. But I think they do, and I think they somehow find a way to do enough at home here, and I hope that happens because I think the Sunbelt race just looks so much crazier than after that because, let's see. Yeah, it would come down then to if Georgia Southern loses this weekend, Marshall and James Madison are literally playing in James Madison next week. The winner goes to the Sun Belt Championship.
That's awesome. That is awesome. We talked about this all year. We talked about something about a good amount, and it's not really. It's definitely a little bit down. I think at the top end, like last year, you had a couple really good teams. This year, you have a lot of solid teams that are going to go bowling, and maybe we might fade them, maybe we won't. But it's going to be. It's been really, really interesting, and especially with Louisiana losing last week, that division got interesting. With Marshall here in Old Dominion, yeah, you said it, man. Marshall loves to run the football, and both these teams do, right? And I think if you're in the Sun Belt, you want to run the football well, and that's a big thing here, and that does travel for Marshall. But AJ Turner, who's one of the better running backs in college football, let alone just
Mm-hmm.
in the Sun Belt, he's had an ankle injury, and I've been scouring some Marshall boards here, trying to find some stuff, and I really can't. And I want to take Marshall because I really was really impressed with how they played last week against Coastal Carolina. Even without AJ Turner, they didn't run the ball well, but Braylon Braxton was efficient. 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. They moved the ball well, right? Converting on third down wasn't terrible. It was kind of impressive, and they kind of jumped on Marshall or jumped on Coastal Carolina. I know there was the turnovers and all that stuff, but it it's going to be an interesting game. The line is super small. I think Old Dominion is 2.5 point favorites at home, so it's about even at neutral site. These teams are pretty much power ranked the same. I just feel a little bit more better in Marshall right now, a little bit more. And if you're going to give me 2.5, this game could be really really close. So I guess I'll take Marshall to go on the road here and get a win. I also do think they are staring down a win here would do massive things for the outlook of their, Sun Belt hopes here. Obviously, they do have a tough finish with Old Dominion and James Madison both on the road down the stretch here. But man, oh man, I like I just barely like Marshall in the spot. It'll be interesting though. And yeah, man, I don't know. I can't get over what Cole Joseph did. Man, he's just been he was really good against Georgia Southern, and then since then, he was good against that, but he had the turnover. And then
Even before
last week,
Georgia Southern, like he was playing good football, dude. That's part of the reason why I got high on him. Like, oh, I'm gonna buy my Old Dominion stock before people figure
well,
out who Colton Joseph is, and then
if he's running the ball well, he's a dangerous football player.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you're right. So, and we'll see if he's able to do that, against a pretty ferocious Marshall pass rush, right? So, yeah, I don't hate your pick at all. I told you, I don't like my pick with Old Dominion, but I'm just more of a vibes pick than anything, and my vibes picks are usually like way off. So it is what it is. Ohio travels to Toledo, right? I mean, what is it? East Ohio versus West Ohio. You got two teams that are fighting for a chance to play in this MAC championship game. Toledo is favored by, well, we'll pick it at 2.5, but a lot of places they're at 3. These are these are good football teams. Ohio is playing really well. Parker Navarro, I think, looks a lot more impressive as the season has gone on. The way that he's able to use his legs, extend plays, even without like two of their top receivers from last year, moving on. And also uh, Saya Bangura moving on to Minnesota. I don't think it's hurt that much because, what we've seen, if you watched the bowl game last year, you saw just little running back, a little preview of that running back room, what it was going to look like um, this season with, I believe his name's Tyus.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been pretty good this year. I'm not going to say he was a monster. He's been a monster like he was in the bowl game last season, or at the end of last season. But I've been very impressed with Ohio's defense. I've faded them a little bit. I kind of rode the Toledo wagon a little bit. Uh, I believe Toledo cashed a nice little dirty dog for me against Mississippi State early in the season. Tucker Gleason, I'll say, I think you were probably more right than I was. I didn't love Tucker Gleason. I think he's played well this year, and I think you were on that a little bit before than I was. Uh, Toledo's got some good talent, man, and it's at home. But I think I just like the way that Ohio's playing football right now. I think they're just playing too good of football. I know they got to go to Toledo. And in terms of MAC environments, that's one of the better ones to be playing in. But I just like Ohio in this spot. Give me the Bobcats plus 2.5 and 2 wins straight up.
Yeah, the Glass Bowl. You gotta love it. You gotta love it there in Toledo. Yeah, listen. Like you said, I think Ohio's been good football. I think Ohio is, and I put a tweet out there. I was over in Athens, this weekend, and Ohio is kind of in the not one among the top favorites to win the MAC, and they're sitting there 5-1 playing really good football right now. Parker Navarro, what he's doing both through the air and more so on the ground has been awesome for them to supplement that passing game there. Yeah, give me Ohio here, and so you get Tucker Gleason, you get him in spots where he's not maybe super comfortable, where he is potentially prone to throwing some interceptions. Yeah, you can absolutely jump on this team, and damn it, man, the MAC is so awesome. The MAC is so awesome. I mean, it's not going to be a playoff competition here in this game, but Ohio's defense has been damn good and a super efficient even through the air. So give me Ohio here. It's going to be interesting though. It's this one we wanted to preview because it is a big one. It's not really a rivalry game, but it kind of is in state Ohio, and I think there will be a lot of. This is a big time outcome here because there's 4 or 5 teams there that are all vying for spots. Excuse me, um in the MAC here, and it's going to get really interesting because a lot of them are playing each other.
Yeah, now Toledo has been very good at home this year. I mean, very good. So that is the one side of it that you look at and you're like, okay, they got a chance here in this game for sure. I mean, geez, they're favored. Ohio sitting at 5-1. Miami, Ohio also sits at 5-1 as well, and Bowling Green also sits at 5-1 as well. And like you said, man, Ohio's got a chance to win this whole dang conference. I know Bowling Green's been playing really good football, but Ohio doesn't have to play Bowling Green this year. They don't have the tiebreaker over Miami of Ohio, so they do need Miami of Ohio to drop, a game somewhere, whether it's against Northern Illinois, but then also Miami, Ohio, and Bowling Green play each other next week, right? So if you're Ohio and you win out, you're
You're
in the
in.
MAC. You're in the MAC championship. So
You're also
yeah. So you're on Ohio as well.
Yeah, I'm on Ohio. I am on Ohio, and we'll find out later what that means. But Ohio's also
Oh yeah, let's go. Come
listen to
on.
this here. Listen to this here. Ohio is converting third down rate at 45.5% rate, which doesn't seem like this amazing clip, but in the MAC that is significantly better than everybody else. Toledo is down at 36.9%, just about 37%. So I mean, those are the margins in these MAC games. I know, going forward on fourth down is a big deal, and Toledo's done that 24 times this year, but they're only converting at 50% rate, and Ohio's only needed to go for it on fourth down 6 times because they've been so good on first and second and third down, and just the down to down, man. Ohio's a good football team. There's a buzz in Athens right now for this football team. I'm gonna ride it.
I agree. Let's go over to the CUSA. Sam Houston traveling to Jacksonville State. I mean, has anyone checked the CUSA conference standings recently?
Typical media. I mean, Liberty loses a couple games and everyone checked out. I mean, what is that
Yeah,
about?
I
It's a big time game.
this is a gigantic game, and we're gonna freaking talk about it. Looking at the conference standings right now, quickly before we get into the game, Jacksonville State is 6-0, by the way, in the conference. Trey Stewart getting, I mean, he's just playing on an ungodly level right now at that running back over there. The whole running back room is really good. I mean, when Andrew Paul's, getting goal line carries and that that's a freaking good room, and he's not even the main stable back, right? Sam Houston's 5-1. Their only loss being to Western Kentucky, who's also 5-1. So yeah, I would say this is a pretty dang big game. If Sam Houston wants to stay in this, right, they gotta freaking win this ball game. Western Kentucky is a short favorite. Um, against Liberty this week. So Western Kentucky drops that game. Sam Houston wins this game. Yeah, there's a chance that Sam Houston is going to be competing there for the CUSA championship, and likely will probably rematch Jacksonville State. But we'll see there. Jacksonville State, man, they're a good football team, dude. But defensively, Sam Houston has been unreal, and they lost their defensive coordinator, by the way, this past season. He went over to New Mexico State to be over there with Tony Sanchez. And
Jacksonville State lost theirs too. He's over in Oklahoma.
I don't know, you'd have to check that for me. And their defense has still been good. They've only allowed 90 points in conference so far. 90 points in 6 games. That is the best in the CUSA by a pretty significant margin. Now, some of that scheduling, I don't know, because they played Western Kentucky, and I know Western Kentucky, looked pretty good, but Sam Houston has been good, Uh, Watson has been a pretty solid quarterback when he's played. I think they have nice weapons at receiver, and they've been explosive at times in certain instances when they've needed to be. But the key to this game for Sam Houston, right, is stopping the Jacksonville State run game, which has been ungodly efficient so far this season, and it's allowed them to just suffocate teams. And they have a great offensive line, and yeah, it's hard because this is a 6.5 point spread, and I think that's a really good line, if you're asking me.
Yeah, it really is. I'll throw another name, Tyler Huff, right now, the quarterback for Jacksonville State. I mean, dare I say, it's USA Player of the Year? I mean, he is top 4 in passing yards and 3rd in rushing yards. He's averaging 6.1 carries. He's got over 10 rushing touchdowns. Throwing the football, it's been a little bit more up and down, but he's over 60% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It's above that 2 threshold that we love to see. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But like you said, that Sam Houston State defense is very, very good. And, if you can stifle that running game, you can muddy up this football game. It could get really interesting. It could get really, really interesting. Man, I want to take Sam Houston really badly. And by the way, we got to credit these teams and these staffs, right? So Casey Keller for Sam Houston State, Rich Rod for Jacksonville State. Like these teams, people forget they were in FCS like 2 years ago. This is their second season in FBS football. Are they allowed to make the conference championship game? Does that, because remember all that stuff that happened with James Madison and
I don't know. I don't know. I thought there was some rule changes there
I thought there was too. I guess I should probably
because, like,
check
Sam
that. But
Houston, this is also their second season as well. So, like, both these teams.
that's what and they're at the top of the CUSA right now. Them in
I don't
Western
know.
Kentucky.
We
So
should probably know that. It's a little embarrassing, but I'm sure there's some Sam Houston mainstays here that will be able to inform us because, damn it, they should be. I mean, holy cow.
I think they changed. I just thought about that right now. I just wanted to double check. But regardless, it's just still a massive game. Give me Jacksonville State. Barely. I don't love it, but you're at home. You've got an explosive offense. I think Sam Houston can kind of only play
They can play in
one.
the conference championship game.
Thank you, NCAA. Thank you, NCAA, for fixing that. For whatever reason, it needed to be fixed, but that's awesome there. I think Jacksonville State, what they can do explosively offensively, and even in a muddied up game, I still think they can get enough points on the board and eke out with a win here. It'll be really interesting. It will be really, really interesting.
Yeah, they can definitely play in the conference title game, which is awesome. So yeah, that's a good point. I guess that you brought up. I didn't even think about that, but yeah. With that being said, I'm. I don't know if you already picked. To be honest, I wasn't listening the last
I took
30
Jack
seconds.
State.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. I don't feel great about it, but giving them at home, they're kind of the team of destiny right now in the CUSA. I mean, if they looked really not good at the beginning of the season, like this turnaround, from the first couple weeks, um, has been very impressive. In the first weeks, you had bad loss to Coastal Carolina. We got smoked, and that loss doesn't look good right now. You lost to Louisville, and then you lost to Eastern Michigan in overtime, on the road. Like, that's how you started your season. And they have ripped off 7 straight wins since then. So, what an impressive turnaround from Rich Rod right there after what we thought might be a disaster of a football team after those first 3 weeks. So, credit to Rich Rod and this Jacksonville State team. Let's head over. It's time. The Dirty Dogs. This is the segment where we take 10-point underdogs. CD9, we do a draft. We pick 2 each. And yeah, you might hear, oh, upset alert. Oh my gosh, Liberty, they're on Western Kentucky's on upset alert because they're 1-point favorites. No, none of that. When we talk about upsets on 30 dogs, we're talking about the stinkiest, the smelliest, the dirtiest of dogs, okay? 10 plus point underdogs is what the threshold is for us, for them to qualify as being draftable. On the season, we are 11-37, which doesn't sound like a good record, but if you were to bet our dirty dogs the whole season, you'd be up 6 units. So, what can I say? I think we've been doing a great job so far, 12 weeks in the season. Let's keep it going. I get the first pick because 2 weeks ago, we didn't land a dirty dog last week. 2 weeks ago, I took Georgia Tech plus 380, so it's kind of like, make it, take it sort of thing. So I get the first pick, but the first pick, I'm going to take Indiana plus 385 against Ohio State. I know I said that I think Ohio State's going to win that game, but Indiana's going to cover. That's exactly why, Indiana has the ability to win that game at plus 385. I think that's pretty decent value. I think people are going to, I think that line will go down. I think at plus 385 is probably going to be the best that you get it. And I'll say that the opposite for my second pick that I want to get off after you give yours. Yeah, I like Indiana in this spot. I think that they have the tools to compete. I think they have the coaching staff to compete. I think they have the will and the purpose and the drive to compete as well. So, CD, what is your pick?
I mean, I'm taking an 0-10 team here. I'm gonna go Kent State. They're 10-point dogs. They are plus 300. I know it's the minimum threshold, but they're 0-10. Man, we were talking off air, man. First of all, I love Kenny Burns, so this is my maybe a homer pick. But the reality is like I think Kent State's due, and some of this dirty dog stuff is vibes. And also, Akron is not good enough where they should be 10-point favorites over anybody in college football on the
No,
road.
no,
That's not good enough. So you're bringing Utakowski in the lineup. I mean, Akron and Kent State, to me, you're looking at the statistical profile, you're looking at them, the eye test. They are similar football teams in terms of just awful. The bottom of the MAC in most things, turnover margin, awful as well. But Kent State lost to their FCS team, and Akron beat Colgate. And then Akron barely beat Eastern Michigan game. They probably got outplayed him because they jumped on him early. And Kent State, had a chance to beat Ball State, and they didn't. So, I guess they kind of made it close here. Well, yeah, they kind of made it close at the end. But regardless, it's I just think they're due, man, and I think this is a spot where you give me a lot of times you're picking against bad football teams, and if you get a bad football team that's 10-point favorite, they have a real chance to lose that game. So give me Kent State plus 300.
Also, Ulatowski was not playing in that St. Francis PA loss that they had early in the season. If he was playing, if they'd figured out that he was the guy, I would assume that if they played that game again, that they would probably win. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, basically, mostly for the reason that Akron shouldn't be 10-point favorites over anyone in the MAC, especially on the road. That's crazy. Feels like that's pretty good value right there. My secondary dog is going to be one that's also plus 385. It's going to be Minnesota taking on Penn State. And I don't think Penn State's really passed my eye test a ton. I think their defense is really good, though, right? That's kind of the part that's scary, and defense a lot of times travels. But I think Max Brosmer, the Rutgers game, he wasn't perfect, right? But I think he's looked like a top half quarterback in the Big Ten. And Penn State has also had trouble running the football some. Not that I think Minnesota's front seven is all that good, because I've been a big proponent of thinking that Minnesota's front seven is not great, and they're not great tacklers, and they, struggle in certain aspects there. But I think Minnesota, I know that Rutgers game looked bad, okay, but I think that Minnesota can beat this Penn State football team. I think people are sleeping on it a little bit. This would be different if it was on the road, but Minnesota gets them at home. Man, in the Huntington Bank, I think I think it's going to be packed there. You could probably attest to this better than me, but I have a feeling that it's going to be packed early, and students might be clamoring to get uh, those first deck seats.
It's gonna be a beautiful day in Minnesota, just around 30 degrees. That's what we love it there, and yeah,
It's
it's
at
not
30
bad.
degrees.
Yeah,
Love
so
that.
it's what's the crazy part is, well, it's the crazy part. I'm glad you did it, and I didn't because I thought about it, but you've also been good on your dirty dogs, and I have not. So that's a good omen for us Gophers up there. But yeah, listen, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy to say Max Brosmer is a better quarterback than Drew Lar. And I don't know how many people had that on their bingo card early in the season, but I think here we've been high on Max Brosmer for a long time. And it's coming to fruition here. I think the Rutgers game was, iffy. But yeah, this is an absolute spot. Penn State can't lose this football game. Going back real quick to Kent State and Akron, there's 13 miles that separate these two campuses. The wagon wheel is that trophy. A rivalry game, 10 point. Oh my gosh. Two,
I love
was
that.
it
I
what?
might throw a side bet. I can't say plus 300. Not gonna lie. Now that you're talking me into it, but
It's Tuesday. It's tonight too. Tuesday night. We're recording this Tuesday morning. So I love it. I love it. My last dirty dog here. I'm going to the Big 12, and I like Arizona. Plus 12.5. They're, I guess, plus 360 money line is what we'll be taking here. But yeah, I think this Arizona team is interesting. They've been up and down, more so down than up. And TCU to me is a team I just still don't trust, even at home here. And I know they've been playing okay football recently, but I think Arizona can be dangerous. I was really impressed with how they came back and responded last week against the Houston football team that had been playing good football as of late. And if you get that defensive performance, if you get Fafita and Quill Conley and McMillan, you got your stars playing well, you can go into Fort Worth there and get a win. And yeah, TCU, has some, good wins, I guess. You beat a Texas Tech team, which is a big win. You beat a Kansas team that's all of a sudden looking like a better win now. But you also have tough losses. And, you got blown up by SMU, and you kind of handled by Houston, and Baylor beats you, even though Baylor's playing good football. But yeah, I think this is pretty good value here in terms of, chances of Arizona getting a win here. Plus three, sorry, what did I say?
plus
Plus
360.
360. Yeah.
Yeah, something that has to happen that hasn't really happened a lot this season is Arizona's got to hold up in that secondary. Which is part of the big loss of losing Johnny Nansen to Texas was that he had that secondary buzzing, right? And you lose a lot of talent. I know you lose your talent and your coach that specializes in the secondary. It's going to be a tough time, right? So, but I don't hate it. I think there were a lot of options this week, dude. There are a lot of 10 plus point underdogs that I think we both looked at and were like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. UConn playing against Syracuse. Syracuse is a big look ahead spot. I don't know. I just saying things. I'm just saying things, but yeah, this 30 dogs this week. Good luck to us. Good luck to us. Let's get over to the counter where we give you our best bets of the week. I believe you have 6 plays. I've got 5. On the season, I'm 37 and 31, up 2.67 units on the year. CD is 31 and 20, up 0.21 units. So positive in the best bets, positive in the 30 dogs. Yeah, we're looking pretty good on the season. So hoping to keep this momentum going for me. I've had a couple winning weeks in a row, and let's make it a third winning week. So, and for you, you've been doing really well, basically since the month of October. So you're looking to bounce back after a 2-2 week. So I guess I'll let you start because you've got 6 plays here. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, we already previewed in depth Ohio at Toledo. I like this one. I can get it at plus 3. I will take it. Ohio plus 3. I think they're the better football team. Yeah, let's go. Enough said.
I'm gonna. I like that, by the way. I'm gonna take the bait here. This team, I don't think should be an underdog, but they're on the road. Illinois is plus 1.5 against Rutgers, and I'm gonna take the bait. It is a gigantic trap game. Are you on it as well?
Yeah, we are, baby.
Let's go. Because I'm staring at this. I'm like, "Ugh, this is the biggest trap game line I've ever seen, and I am going to be hooked and sink. I'm taking it. Taking the bait. Illinois plus 1.5. Feed me against Rutgers.
Yeah, I'm on that too for all the reasons you said. I think Rutgers, while they've been playing better football, I think they caught Minnesota at a bad time and they beat a bad Maryland team. Illinois throwing the football last week gave me a lot of confidence to take this game. And if you can protect, against this Rutgers front, they're going to have a lot of success there in East Rutherford. Let me go to the SEC here. Texas minus 20.5.
Hmm.
Listen, I know I have not trusted Texas all year long. I have not, but I'm ready to buy in. I think defensively, this is what makes me feel good. I think Texas has the star power offensively to move the football. I think at home, this is a good spot here. I think they know, Sark knows, by the way, huge look ahead spot. I think the culture there is super, super sound. I think they're in a spot where they're going to go out and dominate. And by the way, they should need style points. I'm going to say it. They should need style points because, in my opinion, you lose to A&M. You do not have an SEC championship game or appearance on your resume. I don't believe you should get in unless crazy stuff happens behind you. But they are way too high right now for me. But maybe the committee knows something. And so let's go Texas minus 20.5.
That's not crazy at all. I'm going to go over to the Big 12 in the Big 12 game of the year. Arizona State, we talked about it, minus 3.5. Not going to think about it. They're just playing good football. Kenny Dillingham and the boys and Brian Ward are absolutely buzzing. Feed it to me.
I love that. I love that. Give me USC minus 4.5 at UCLA. I know UCLA is playing good
I love
football, but
it. I love
USC got
it.
a big time win last week. Showed a lot of resilience over the bye week. I think they need this win more than UCLA does, and you're going to see it in the way they play. Minus 4.5 USC. Yeah, this seems like
Yeah, I
some
like
value.
that. Mayava looked good. Well, I think people will disagree with that. Like
They
how
ran the
good he
ball.
actually looked. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I like that. Even though UCLA's been playing good, I like that. I'll I'll lay it. Giant line, Boise State in the Mountain West playing against Wyoming in Laramie. I know Laramie is a tough place to play, but is that just a greater incentive for them to give Ashton Genty the ball more times? Uh, I say yes. When you're averaging 7.7 yards per carry and you go to elevation where it's difficult to throw the football with a lot of wind, if Genty's going to get 35 touches, feed me Boise State minus 22.5 because Lord knows Wyoming isn't going to do anything. It doesn't matter what defense they're playing against. That Wyoming offense is garbage. And their run defense, by the way, they're giving up like almost 6 yards a carry on the season. It's pretty atrocious. So, Boys State minus 22.5.
Proceed with caution is all I'll say. We have a couple rules on the show. Now I won't go through all of them, but one of them is Mike Gundy. Don't bet against Mike Gundy, and one of the other ones is don't bet against Wyoming in Laramie. Here's the thing, though: Mike Gundy has been on the downtrend, right? And Oklahoma State has been very bettable against, and so maybe this one's broken this year too. So regardless, I hope you win, but best of luck going into Laramie and getting a win there. I'll go to the Big 12 here, a game we also previewed: Colorado minus 3 against Kansas. I know you're on the other side of that. Not necessarily a best bet, but you feel like Kansas got a good chance to win that game, and absolutely they do. Again, I said it before. I still think Colorado is the best team in the Big 12. I think they have a chance here. Their eyes are huge right now. And looking at that Big 12 championship game, they know how important this win is. Colorado minus 3. And I think they run up the score a little bit, and then you put Kansas in a spot where they have to throw the football, be uncomfortable, and that's where Daniels can potentially make some mistakes, and you can really, make sure the backdoor cover is not in play.
Yeah, I like it. Let me go over to the CUSA. Western Kentucky is playing against Liberty. They're 1 point favorites. I know that they dropped an abysmal one last week to Louisiana Tech. Just abysmal. But I am not sold on this Liberty football team being good at all. I still think this Western Kentucky team is good for CUSA standards. I still believe in Caden Beldham. I still believe in Elijah Young. I still believe in Dalvin Smith and whatever the motley crew that they got there on that offensive side of the football. Give me Western Kentucky minus 1. I know they're going on the road, but come on. Come on, boys.
Yeah, they probably had the most impressive win in the CUSA beating Sam Houston State, right? Kind of handily, putting up 31 points like they did. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. My last one here: Notre Dame minus 14 in the game we previewed against Army, neutral site there up in the Bronx.
Love
Listen,
it.
I think Notre Dame. Like I'm not gonna make the same mistake again that I did with Navy and not betting that game. I think not that Army's the same team as Navy, but I think Notre Dame will be able to handle them in a similar way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I was almost on it, but it's hard to justify gambling those lines against military schools. But I really do like that a lot. I stayed away from it though, betting it, but I was with you on it. in the game previews. Uh, my last one, Mississippi State +8 against a Missouri team. I know, it's scary. Mississippi State, scary. Missouri looked better last week than they have, pretty much all season. I get it. I get the fears. But like Mississippi State, they've struggled in SEC play, and I know people are going to be like, "Oh, what another SEC homer or whatever." I mean, it was a brutal schedule that they had to play, dude. Their SEC schedule is brutal. It is Texas A&M, it is Georgia, it is Texas, it is Tennessee on the road. And that Arkansas, I guess, is pretty good as well. So I mean, I guess you dodged. You still got to play Ole Miss too, by the way. I guess the big one that you dodged was Alabama. But like other than that, you basically hit all the big ones. And while they haven't looked very competitive in a ton of SEC football games this year, I think Missouri at going to Stark Vegas. I think Van Buren can do some magic there if you just keep it within the touchdown, right? But I'm getting at +8, so I like it there. Give me Mississippi State +8, playing Missouri in Stark Vegas.
That's not crazy at all. We talked about it. If that game was at 10 here, that'd be on my dirty dogs for sure. Listen, my last one. It's not in yet at all, but this is our plug. My plug to follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. If this line does drop to 7 or below 7, Vandy at LSU night game. It's at 7.5 right now, so just keep an eye out for that. Make sure you are following us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. I'll say it again. Turn on post notifications, all that good stuff, and yeah, we'll get that out to you if it does come our favor.
That'll do it for our Week 13 preview. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening to our game previews, our dirty dogs, and our best bets as well. We wish you guys luck in your endeavors in the gambling world if that's what you're about. If you're not and you're just a college football fan, we wish your team the best, unless, you are an Auburn Tiger fan or a Texas Longhorn fan these next couple of weeks, because I will be fading you in rooting against those teams. But thank you guys so much for supporting us. If you like the content, like the video, simple rule that we have here, we say all the time, I know, but just do it, man, and hit that subscribe button if you want to be with us the rest of the season and the bowl season, which I'm going to tell you this, you're going to get better bowl season coverage here than you're going to get just about anywhere else. So we love that. We live for the bowl season. And of course, not to mention the last 2 weeks of the season and the conference championships are also kind of a big deal. So thank you all so much for everything. And CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, thank you so much. Hope you guys are enjoying our content as much as we are enjoying having fun putting it out for you guys. Enjoy the college football season, last couple weeks. Just cherish the regular season, man. It's so special. I know we're talking about bowl season, but just cherish it. Football will be gone before you know it, and this is a special time of year right now.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all in the next one.